This session here is actually on Moodle restrictions and completions. It's a new thing that was added actually to Moodle 3.0, and it allows you to actually do a lot of different control features that used to not be possible. First one though I want to talk about is activity completion. This is a thing that you can actually set for individual activities, even things that they just have to click on or read. This is an option that you must turn on in your main Moodle page setting in order to monitor the student's progress. And the further use of the options to allow students to actually keep track of their own progress so they can actually see what it is that they actually have done. It'll actually show up on their Moodle page as they go through. All you have to do actually is go into the main edit settings, all right, underneath the course administration tab that's on the left-hand side of your main Moodle screen, and you click on the edit settings. And from that one, you go down, it's the third to the last option in all of them. It actually says completion tracking. You click on that one, and then another menu actually will open up right underneath it. It says enable completion. You click yes, then you click save, and now you're ready to actually use it. So it's pretty easy. Now, once that you're actually in it, and you have some sort of activity out there, now that you've actually activated this, any kind of activity that you have, even if it's not what you would call an activity, all right, let's just say that it's a chunk of reading that you have, a web page or something like that, you can actually put a activity completion requirement on it, all right, so that it will actually register to you and to the student whether it was actually completed by them or not. Once that you actually click on that, you'll be given a variety of options. While many of the options you see and understand, all right, it's the box maker completion tracking you need to make the biggest choice on. And that's this area right here, all right, on the screen. And it basically will determine whether the box, when checked by the student, is either like this solid one here is actually done by the student, and the checked one here with the dotted line on it is one that actually self-generates. So like if you set the criteria, let's say on this one here, it says student must view this activity to complete it. If I changed it from manual mode, all right, to an automatic mode, I could click on this box, and as soon as the kid entered it, it would change the dotted box here as empty to a check mark, saying that the kid actually entered it and looked at it. And it would show up on their Moodle page as that, and it would also show up in your tracking that they also did that as well. If you want to require a passing grade, say that this was a quiz or a lesson or something along that lines, then you could go automatic and click for passing grade. Now, the passing grade would have to actually be set up inside the actual activity itself, which it's just in the same area as the tracking stuff is in the options. You just set whatever it is, 60% or whatever, if you have a point value or something like that. The dotted ones will always be the ones that come automatic, and the solid boxes are ones that the students actually get. Now you can also set a completion expectation date on here, all right, or leave it open if you want to. Once you've actually done this, you hit save, and it goes out to the regular screen. And you'll be able to actually see it on the right-hand side of every single assignment or activity that you actually set. That's kind of a quick run through, but you need these things also in order to set restrictions, because they can work together, because one of the criteria in restrictions is activity completion. And it's actually one of the best ones because you can keep a kid from actually progressing until they've actually at least completed the assignment. You could also put a grade with it. There's loads of options actually with this one. Now, what exactly are restrictions? They're used to actually grant access to material on Moodle to a select group or individual you've deemed worthy to enter. Now, what exactly does it mean? Is that you can set the criteria in numerous ways to challenge them as needed. You can give access to 1, 2, or 100 people based on what you think they need to have done before or not have done before getting access to this material. So it can work in both ways. Whereas the last time that you were able to actually do this, when Moodle 1.9 we were using, the only place that you could actually restrict access to people automatically was in lessons. And that was just a lesson progression. So you can actually give access to people to stuff if they didn't pass work and stuff. Well, but I'll show that to you in just a minute here. Where to find those restrictions? All right, they're actually located in the third to the last option on your material settings page. This is in any particular activity that you have set up. The restriction one can be used just like the activity completion one, and that you can have it on anything. You can actually restrict access to videos that you have online. The videos only show up if they took a quiz and they scored below this amount. A video would show up for to help them out, or any number of things. This is really fresh and new, and it's something that you can actually add a lot to. A lot of people, I think, will be using this when they do the blended learning, because you can direct your entire class through this. But after you click on that, you'll actually be given a restriction access options, all right? And all you have to do then is add a restriction. Now, once this comes up, all right, the add restriction button, you'll then be faced with a host of options, but it's not something you should freak out about, all right? This particular list is one that I have. It's one that I have because I have a few more things in mind. Ones that we're not actually going to cover today on here, though, are stashed objects, all right, and levels. If you go to Mr. Poole's gamification video and watch it, then you'll actually be able to see where these ones come into play in gamification, and then you can also use those ones in your restrictions as well. And they're kind of fun. The kids actually like these ones here. So if you actually watch his video and then come back and see how you can actually use them, and with this, you can have actually quite a lot of fun with them. All right, but the first one I'm actually going to talk about here is activity completion, because we just got done talking with that, so it should be pretty fresh. All right, in the activity completion, all right, this restriction limits access to material based on the completion of a previous activity. All right, you have 4 options on the completion form. All right, they're marked as completed, marked as not marked as completed, completed with a passing grade, and completed with a failing grade. These ones are pretty basic. All right, so you get to choose your activity here out of all the activities that you have available. All right. So basically, the more stuff you have online, the more restrictions, the more flow control that you can actually do. You click that here, shows up in that window, pick one of these 4 options, all right, and then save, and it's done. And now nobody can actually see that unless they actually meet that particular criteria, or they can't access it. We'll talk about what you can and can't see in a little bit. It has to do with this little eyeball here. This eyeball doesn't work like the old eyeball idea when you're turning things on and off, all right? It has to do with visibility, not on and off. You can also do a date restriction. That would be the next one down on your list, all right? Simple one is you can limit access to material to and from a specific date period. So again, just set what you actually have on here. Pick the date and time, bing, you're done. These ones are also actually, it's another restriction that's actually done in multiple spots, but you kind of get used to doing it here. And this one here, actually, if you leave this eyeball open, it will actually tell the students when they can actually access this right out on the main page. Whereas if you use the date and time thing back inside the activity, the kids actually have to click on it first before they actually see it. Grade restriction. This is one that can be used a lot as far as controlling the progress of each student. What's the next thing that they can see, whether they get bumped to a remediation assignment or they go on to a more advanced assignment, or you're just controlling the flow as they make it through with the regular standard work. You can actually set a minimum and maximum. All you have to do then is go down to the grade area and click on it, and all the assignments that you have that actually can generate a grade will actually be available to you. Then you'll either check this checkbox or this checkbox. All right, and if you check the first one, it's any grade that is greater than or equal to, and put that score in here. And of course, if this one here is less than. All right, so if you say you want a remediation assignment for kids, everybody that scored below a 70, put that in here, check this box, put 70% right here, hit save, and that activity will only be accessible to kids who scored below 70. Now the group and grouping restrictions, this is actually two separate ones that you can choose from, but if you use this a lot, you know that you can actually get really sophisticated with this one as far as how you had your kids grouped. All right. Starting off first, you guys already have the sections grouped that are already inside Moodle. The Pool actually has it already generated. So you can actually use those groups. You can go into Moodle and create groupings, all right, so that you can actually make multiple tiny groups and then make a grouping of individual other groups. So let's just say, it sounds kind of strange, but if for some reason you have an advanced group in period 2 and period 3, you could call that advanced, all right, and that would actually be a grouping. And so you want somebody to have access to it. Well, the only people you want access to it is the advanced. That's one that you would click over here, and the list of groupings would show up, and you just click advanced. But if you're over here and you want just first period to actually see it, then you just click there, first period, that's the only ones who can actually see it at the time. And you can change it. If you have multiple levels of difficulty through it, you could have stuff stretched out from all aspects. IEP kids, kids who have particular other learning disabilities, 504 type ones and stuff. You can make all kinds of different groups inside that, all the way up to kids who are rated as gifted in your particular class. You use these ones and you can grant access to them that way. User profile, all right, this is like a surgeon's scalpel when it comes to restriction tools, and then it grants access to students based on the material that the student, that makes the student who they are in the particular profile. There's a really, really wide array of options, and I can't go through all of them, but as you can imagine, if you click on these ones, things that are equal to or sound like and so forth, if you go through every single one of these, you could literally make access granted to a specific student. So you can say, Joe Smith, and it was like, your selection here would be last name is equal to, and you put Smith on here, and you're like, well, there's a lot of Smiths. Yep, but you can actually add another restriction just like this one and say that it also has to say Joe. All right, and you could add another one that even gives the kid's middle name if it shows up, or the kid's student ID number, and so forth and so forth. You can keep adding restrictions until you can get to that specific kid, depending on how narrow you want to get this. All right. This one, like I said, it is a surgeon's tool. All right, you can narrow it down just as fine as you actually want to. all right? And you can also use it in cooperation with the other ones. So you can use multiple restrictions on top of one another to aim for specific students if you wish. Now, now the restriction set is a really, really good one in that you can have specific criteria. All the ones that I listed out before this, you can actually add in a set of restrictions. So that you can say, all I want to have access to it is kids from first period whose first name starts with an R, all right, and last name starts with an S, and I only want them to have access to it from this date to this date if they actually scored over 70% on this activity. You could get that detailed with it. It's up to you. Mind you, you probably never need to use that many different restrictions on it, but if you wanted to, you could get that detailed with it. The eyeball, all right, that has actually been showing up next to every single one of those restrictions, all right, it controls whether a student can see the restriction to get the material, not whether the restriction is on or off, all right, it's whether the student can see it. So if you actually have this particular eyeball like this, all right, if it's open, it allows the student to see what they need to accomplish to gain access. Now this could be a good thing, this could be a bad thing, however you want to do it. If you actually have it closed, all right, it keeps them from seeing it, all right, that there is even anything there until they actually have fulfilled it. It also keeps it out of the grade book, all right, until they've been granted access. So as soon as they do get access, all right, it will pop up in the grade book, which is a nice thing. This part here, all right, is actually also very beneficial because if you do it like this and you make particular restrictions so that only your IEP kids could actually see this particular activity, all right, none of the other kids see it on the main page, and, all right, that's if you use this one, all right, none of the kids can see it unless they're IEP kids or a specific group that you've designated. It doesn't show up in their grade book, all right, unless they're an actually IEP kid, because they never get access because they don't belong to that group. So you could literally have multiple different versions of Moodle that show up based off of what that particular kid's needs are, or that you've decided what those particular needs happen to be. So there's not like, why is so-and-so taking a different assignment from me? They don't even see that it's even there. So this one's actually a pretty nice one because I have used this a lot so far this year.
Wait till next year.
Now, why should a restriction access, why should we actually do this? All right, you can do it through differentiation, self-paced activities. You can also do it in a fun game-like learning atmosphere. So that if you picked up on the ones that I said before that has to do with the gamification, the nice part about this is it's a bit of gamification even without actually trying it, because every time a kid actually completes something, they never really actually have to come back up to you and say, do I have anything new to do? Because it will automatically pop out there if there's something new for them to actually work on. And they'll know whether they got it finished or not because the completion one will put check marks next to it. I have lots of kids who actually come up and say, I don't have this check mark accomplished yet on this particular activity. And it's like, have you looked at your scores yet? And they're like, oh, and they'll go back and they keep working at it until they get the check mark. And you can give access to only those who actually need access to stuff. All right? And that way you can limit those, why is so-and-so doing something different than me? Questions that at least in the middle grades I know we get an awful lot. Well, that's actually it for my presentation. If you got lost or I talked way too fast, which is quite a possibility, all right, this little link that's up here at the top.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
What if you're a dumbass and didn't? Can you send this to me?
Yeah, this thing is actually being recorded right now. It will show up on our page later on, Mr. Pool's setting up. But if you want to, you can actually always access it through this particular link up here. Don't bother actually clicking on this because it's an actual video. You actually have to type this in the address bar on your browser. But other than that, I was like, if you have any other questions, you can actually also reach me here at Trail, here at my email address. All right, love talking about Moodle, so if you have any questions, you can stop by. I'm at 401 or send me an email.